Hey everybody, welcome back to the High Performance Zone. Today I have surfing model, tango dancer, social entrepreneur, really most of all, a best-selling author, Renee, we call her Fire now, Linnell. And this is pretty cool, all right? Just hang in there because we go deep, all right? We go deep into how do you make magic and miracles and travel and romance in your life, all right? How do you overcome great sadness, depression into sheer joy? You know, how come warriors have a heart? That was her direct quote. You want to make sure you find that. And overall, how do you make your life better? So this one went deep. I'm super grateful to have the time with Fire and Gucci. Enjoy this and please pass it along. Ready? Hit it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the High Performance Zone. Today we're going to have fun with Renee. And Renee, we just named you a call sign, Fire Linnell. And that's because of your book that you just wrote. What's the title of your new book, by the way?
Still on Fire.
Still on Fire. I can't wait. Just came out in August. Is that correct?
It did, yes.
All right, we'll make sure everybody knows how to connect to that. But first off, I just want to dive into a couple stories because you have amazing stories. The first one I want to know about is, what about wake surfing with crocodiles in Panama? I read that and I went, whoa, this girl rocks. Tell me about that.
So I was on a surf trip in Panama, and the surfers were the surf was great, but the surfers were kind of aggressive in the lineup. And
oh yeah,
my travel buddy and I were thinking of moving on. And he came back to me one day after dinner. I was reading and he said, I just met this guy with like a 70-foot trimaran, and I talked him into sailing up and down the coast looking for surf as long as we pay for gas. Are you in? And I said, yeah, I'm definitely in. And then we found a couple other surfers to join because we wanted to share the gas cost. And a couple days in, we got pulled over by Panamanian militia. It turns out our captain never called in us as passengers, and he didn't have papers for his boat.
No.
And so we were detained at gunpoint. We were pulled into a bay that was hidden, so anybody going up and down the coast would never have found us. And they had bulletproof vests and they had guns, machine guns, and we realized they were trying to confiscate the boat if possible. So the big boss left, and he left us standing on the bow in the sun. And my friend spoke fluent Spanish, and he started joking around with them. And the longer we sat there, the more he asked them if they wanted a cold beer, and, you know, saying, you want one, you want one. And so he got them to drink a beer. And then he told them that I surfed and that I would surf behind their boat in a bikini if they would let us go.
Really?
The boat turned out to be a Colombian drug running boat that they'd confiscated. It had 4 huge engines. I didn't know about the crocodiles, but I was dying to go surfing. I was so hot. I wanted to get off the bow of that boat. I said I would do it. And so we did it. I went on the swim platform and they threw a line over, and I insisted that my friend go on the boat so that I wasn't being dragged off alone. And they took me wake surfing, and I got up right away and I surfed. And then eventually they revved the engines too fast, so I let go. And I was sitting there waiting for them to come back, and they came back really fast, and they were all screaming. And I thought they were screaming because I surfed so well. It turns out they were screaming because there were crocodiles everywhere, and they thought I knew, and they thought I just did not care. And they let us go. They were like, "Eres loca, loquísima, you're crazy." And they let my friend and me go, and the others got held there for another week.
Whoa. So what's the lessons that you pull from that story? Incredible story, by the way. What did you learn from that?
I love calling meetings like that divine appointments. And so we could go into them being terrified, but it's what the universe handed us. And so then we made it fun, and then we made friends, and then we had a great time, and it's a great story. And when we left, I was laughing, my friend was laughing, the gunslinging Panamanians were laughing. I mean, it was a divine appointment by the universe, I think.
Yeah, no, I love that. Another way I think to look at it is this idea that challenges, when they presented to us, could be opportunities, right? Like you're saying, and it could actually be divine depending on, how you approach it. Right.
Right.
And that's really cool. Well, just a couple questions. Militia, does that mean they are endorsed by the government, or were these people who you just don't know? They're just going to.
I have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what was so sketchy about it.
What a cool story. Well, how old were you at that time in your life?
I was probably 22, maybe
22.
21.
Yeah, we're fearless at that age, aren't we?
Yeah.
Most of us. But I had a couple of other notes here that said you had traveled to almost 50 countries by the time you were in your mid 20s. Tell me more a little bit about your background. I want to dive into why all this, why this adventure?
So my father was captain of a landing craft infantry in World War II in 5 invasions.
Which islands did he participate
in? He was in Europe. So he was in Anzio, Elba, southern France. Oh, I can't remember the other two, but he definitely raised me with the glad to be here mindset, because he was always like, he shouldn't be here. Right. And then most of my family died before I turned 15. And then he died on Thanksgiving Day when I was 15. Oh. And so I just was like, why are we here? And what's the point? And, there has to be more than what I'm learning in church and school. And so at 15 years old, I decided to start this spiritual quest for why we're here. And it led me all over the world. It led me to every self-help book possible. But I was traveling the world to learn about myself and to learn about the world. And I was fortunate enough to be a surf model. So I got to travel around surfing. Nice. And I just wanted to discover for myself what I was learning in church and in school wasn't resonating as truth. All the scarcity consciousness and lack and fear, and you can't make money doing what you love. And so I just wanted to find out for myself. So we're going to go into that journey, but I do want to get to why are we here, but I don't want you to answer that yet. I want to hear the path that you took on. So at 15, you've lost your family. What did you do? What was your next steps? Well, I still had my mother and my twin brother. My mother was an abusive alcoholic, and she turned more to alcohol and pills. So I was really on my own. And somebody had handed me that book, Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss. And I haven't read that. Tell me it's a great book. Just give me the executive summary. What's the essence of it? I love the title, by the way. He was a medical doctor, and then he became a psychotherapist, and he started regressing people in hypnotherapy. And he discovered that he was regressing people to past lives. Right. And they were having similar experiences when one life ended before another life started, talking with these masters. And so the premise of the book is he's like, I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. This is just what I've discovered. And I think the world needs to know about it. And so he introduced to me this idea that we live multiple lives, that we're learning in every life, and we're constantly reunited with souls that we love. And at 15 years old, after losing my father, I was like, I can't prove this is true, but this gives me so much hope and so much happiness. And so I decided at 15 years old, I'm going to believe that this is true, that we reincarnate over and over. We're learning all these fabulous lessons, and we're constantly reunited with people we love. So that started that. That's cool. I know that, I was brought up in a Catholic Christian belief system that said, you go to heaven or hell or purgatory. And it turns out, I think, and I haven't researched this, that past lives is not just an Eastern concept. I mean, there's a lot of religions that have that. And even the whole point of even religion, who cares? And I think that sometimes it's hard when we're brought up to a certain belief, and it could be on past lives, it could be on different cultures, on different people. It's sometimes hard to grasp another perspective, to really, be open enough to be open to the idea. So what have you learned then in that journey of being open in perspective? Because it sounds like you started traveling the world on a discovery, right? A walkabout. Well, but tell me, what happened? Well, what happened was it was wonderful. I met so many people. I surfed so many great waves. I experienced so many different cultures. But I still had this deep sadness inside and this void, and I felt soul sick, and I couldn't understand why. And
Okay.
especially when I had everything. And so then that's how I wandered into a Buddhist cult when I was 33, which I ended up brainwashed and destroying my life and destroying my sanity.
Well, tell me more about that. Where did you meet this person and what was it like?
So that's my first memoir. That's called The Burn Zone, is all about that. And I just, again, I had this great life, but something was missing. I didn't know what was missing. But no matter what I achieved or what I accomplished or experienced, it never filled this void. And then I walked into a meditation seminar, and the first time I sat in front of this woman and meditated, this peace exploded inside my mind. And I realized later I went into a state called samadhi, which is the highest.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You did that? Had you been taught to meditate before?
No, I had no idea how to meditate.
Wow. That's
And
good. So describe what samadhi is. What is that state?
Well, it was like everything disappeared. My whole world turned white. My mind was flooded with the most intense bliss and peace, and this absolute knowing that everything's fine, always has been, always will be. I mean, it was exquisite. And I realized this is what I've been searching for my entire life. I don't care who this woman is. I don't care what she says. I'm home, and I will stick around and figure out how to do this all the time inside.
Now, this is when you were 33, and where were you?
33.
Where were you?
Well, I blurred the details in the book to make the story about me and not about, but I was in California.
Okay, got it. Okay. So you're in this state that you never experienced before, which you later were told is called samadhi, this oneness, blissful state. And then what happens? So that's a pretty cool story. I mean, right there, I'm going, cool. That's good.
Well, and what was super cool was I was expecting a woman, like an older woman in a long robe with mala beads and sandals. And she was this gorgeous young woman in an Armani suit with stiletto heels. And the music, I thought we were going to listen to like spa music. And she put on Navras from Matrix, which is a total techno song. And then I opened my eyes, and I was like, when she took questions from the audience, I said, what just happened to me? And she goes, you're in the burn zone. You might want to move back a few rows. So that's how I got the title for my first book. And then she said, you know, people think you meditate to relax and unwind. If you want to relax and unwind, go drink a beer and get a blowjob. What I'm going to teach you to do is sharpen your mind. She's a badass right off the bat. I mean, like the Armani suit, the stiletto heels, the gourd. And she is like, I'm going to teach you to sharpen your mind. It's the hardest thing there is to do. Imagine being able to walk through this world unaffected, not knocked off balance by anything. And so she said, in the East, people have these really strong spiritual practices, but they live in poverty. In the West, people have these great careers, but they're soul sick. So I'm going to teach you to sharpen your mind through meditation, and then you're going to use your career as your spiritual practice. And you're going to bring the best of basically what you were doing when you were flying, total, utter focus on the task at hand, which is meditating. And she said, when you bring the best of yourself to your job, then you'll get promoted, you'll make more money, you'll create a life where you can meditate better and give back to the world through philanthropy. And so I was like, sign me up. This woman's going to not only teach me how. And my tasks were like, get a black belt in karate, get an MBA from one of the hardest business schools in the country, become a computer programmer.
Wait a minute. Now she tasked you, or you came up with these ideas?
No, those were my homework assignments. Wow. So it was awesome in the beginning, like every toxic relationship, it's awesome in the beginning, or you wouldn't enter into it and stick. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So get in a black belt in karate. Which dojo? I don't know the right term. What kind of karate was it?
I did Shotokan karate in New York, and it was intense and it was awesome. I loved it.
How long did it take you to get your black belt?
I never made it to black belt because I ended up having. Another task I was given was to start a business that made $10 million profit after taxes. So I fell in love with my sensei. I started a business with him. We had an earth-shattering falling out. We ended up in the New York tabloids, and I left New York.
No.
When I was just about to promote for brown belt.
Okay, I got you. Well, there's more to that story though. So what kind of business did you guys start? Was it a karate business?
No, it was an exercise, gyrotonic exercise.
Okay. And
Yeah.
did it get off the ground or no?
Yeah. Yeah. It was great. It was great.
Okay. What lesson did you learn from that experience? Because it obviously didn't end well.
The biggest was we've got to follow our own inner guidance. You know, it
Mm,
doesn't matter what experts are telling us or the guru or the partner or school or church. When it goes against the inner knowing of our heart, we've got to follow the inner knowing of our heart, even if it means being ostracized, demonized, whatever.
yeah. Yeah. I love that. Going back real quick to that state of flying the jet. So you read the book that Sugar
Yes, of
sent you, right?
course. Are you kidding? You can't send me something like that. I read it immediately. And I watched
What
the documentary.
what stuck out to you? What was it that you found interesting?
You know, I ended up, a lot brought me to tears in the documentary and the book, and it might bring me to tears talking about it. But because I love so much people who know what their calling is and go for it. And so that moment when you realized you had to level up 300%
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you just started immediately to do it is amazing to me, because so many people argue for their limitations. I can't, it's not possible. And you just were like, this is what I have to do, and I'm doing it. I loved that.
That's cool. You know, the other thing on that I want to make sure everybody knows is it takes a support structure around you too. You know, you mentioned a lot about your support structure. We had, great airplanes, great people, great training, and mentoring, coaching, but all with a purpose higher than self. And I think that was the differentiator. It wasn't just, hey, we're going to fly jets closer together and lower to the ground than any other team in the world consistently under changing conditions. No, we're going to be ambassadors of goodwill. We're going to make an impact on a child's life. And that's, to me, was the secret sauce of this glad to be here that allowed all those other things then to materialize. How about you in your life? How did that resonate with the experiences you've had?
Well, the thing that you wrote about trust, really resonated with me in the three components,
Okay.
the competency and the commitment and the consistency.
Nice job.
Um,
Wow.
well, and I looked back at that, made me start thinking about romantic relationships and
Nice.
how the most recent one I was in, right off the bat, and I hate to say it, but the man was younger than I was, and he wasn't competent in as far as keeping me safe, as far as like leaving my doors unlocked or my garage door up or not being safe in traffic.
Right.
And so then I realized the trust component was
Yeah.
dropped immediately on my end because of that. And then because I wasn't committing 100% because I didn't feel safe, I realized then he was feeling shaky because there wasn't commitment
Yep.
100% for me. So it was so interesting for me to read how you broke those down. And I never thought about trust that way, but how those three components are so important. And I don't think I ever had trust with my mother, and then
Mm,
my family dying, I didn't have that. So it was always kind of me in the world alone, it felt like. And then
right.
when I wandered into that cult, I finally felt like I had family and that I could trust them.
Okay.
And then, so the most shattering part about being brainwashed and having my whole life fall apart was that I didn't know if I could trust myself anymore
Right.
because I'd made such a bad decision. And I didn't know if I could trust the world anymore because all of my paradigms got shattered.
Yeah. Wow. That idea of it really comes back to the self, right? Know thyself, and the
Right.
idea of trust. I'm glad that you put it in terms of a relationship, because I think while the book's really written for high performance teams, all teams are relationships, and even your personal ones, right?
Yeah.
So that was a very good insight from you there. Let's go to the idea though of your why, because we talked about that earlier. You were on this quest to determine, why am I here? Is that correct? Is that what I
Yeah.
remember?
Yeah. Yeah. What's the point? What's the point of human existence? And I wanted to understand this deep soul sickness. Like, no
Yeah.
matter how much I achieved and how much I had, why did I still feel empty inside?
Oh, nice. That's a deep question. Well, have you figured it out? Do you
I
know the
figured
answer?
it. Okay. So every time I think I have anything figured out, the world comes along and shows
Yeah.
me, yeah, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
Well,
Okay.
that's wise too, right? That's that karate master dojo, going back to the beginner's mind. But I like your idea. Okay, so Keep going. That's
So
pretty cool.
what I figured out is we live in the land of dichotomy. And so we're meant to experience the opposites. And so
Nice.
for those of us who experience a ton of joy and bliss and gratitude and optimism, when we go down really hard to the opposite, because as above, so below. And so in the past where I thought there was something wrong with me when I felt that, now I realize it's like a storm coming in. The clouds have rolled in. I can't see clearly. I'm not seeing through a lens of love. I'm seeing through a lens of confusion. And I've learned just hunker down, try not to send emails or text messages or make travel plans when I'm feeling like this.
Right.
Don't judge myself. There's
Big.
nothing wrong with me, and just let it pass. And
Wow.
that was worth, and then the whole trying to be a saint and ruining my whole life to be an enlightened saint. And I finally realized the enlightened version of me is this human version that has all these quirks and flaws and really lots of positive stuff and negative stuff. And that I can be a saint every day when I'm kind. And that means, leaving my house 15 minutes early so I'm not a jerk in traffic.
Yeah.
Or smiling at the post office, when I'm feeling sad, or holding a door open for people, or listening, when I don't feel like listening. So.
Wow. That's amazing. To me, that's kind of the essence of glad to be here, right? Some of those little things, picking up the little things in life, like the smile, the gratitude, the gratefulness for the small things that can get us through some of the challenging times. It's interesting you mentioned about the storms in life. We're recording this only a few days after Hurricane Ian just hit Florida, and I've got some of my teammates are in Florida, and it amazes me how a hurricane, so much energy can be in a very tight area. And then you go a little bit out, it's less, a little bit out, it's less. And, maybe 100 miles out, it's just a rainstorm. But if you're in the fury, or maybe the burn zone is maybe a title that you might associate with, there's a lot of energy there, and you got to be prepared, right? I mean, you're in that zone. Is there an analogy there that resonates with you? I'm just pulling that out of thin air, by the way. Is there anything there that you go, yeah, that kind of makes sense, or not?
What came to me was that, so I grew up a lot of my childhood in Florida and in the Bahamas on a boat. And so I know hurricanes really well.
Tell me what were some experiences? What do you do in a boat when a hurricane's coming?
Well, my father, he always had this dream that he would one day live on a boat after being captain of an LCI. And he was able to achieve that. And so I remember one night being really young, probably 6, and he was really stressed, and we were docked in Chub Cay in the Berry Islands, and he kept looking.
Wait, where's that? Where's the Berry Islands?
It's in the Bahamas.
Bahamas. Okay, got it.
Yeah. And back then he had those old satellites and ship to shore radio.
Right.
He kept looking at the charts and at the satellite, and I just remember him saying, "We're going for it." Wow. And he decided to leave the Bahamas and head to the United States ahead of this hurricane.
Yep.
And the seas were unbelievably rough.
Yep.
My mother locked my brother and me in our cabin because we kept running around screaming because we were little, and we could feel that there was a lot of tension in the air.
Right.
They were throwing furniture over to make the boat go faster.
Wow.
And we made it to port. We were doing death rolls to the right and left, and we made it to port in Florida in time, but there were water spouts everywhere too. It was crazy. And we're out in the middle of the ocean crossing the Gulf Stream. Every boat sank in the harbor that we left, and we made it.
Wow.
And
talk about divine intervention again, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
I think it's really your dad's instincts and training. He knew, but there's also a piece of luck with everything. I don't know if luck's the right word. There's a piece of intuition that needs to kick in, right?
Yeah. And he was such a good example of what you were talking about with the storm, and I think most warriors are. I love warriors because you all have such beautiful hearts, and you incarnated with a specific mission to use your ferocity to, let's just say, to uplift those who don't have the strength to do what you do and to protect us. And so you guys are a perfect example of these storms. It's like you're happy and you're calm and you're just sitting there waiting. And then when it's time to go into action, you go into action, and it's incredible. And it's the divine moving through you.
Oh, that's pretty deep. Where'd you get this from? Your dad? You also mentioned warriors. Who did you have been around to get that insight? Because it's pretty cool. That's pretty
I
deep.
think, I think I have a lot of past lives as a warrior,
Okay.
honestly. And when I first
Got it.
did karate katas, the ancient forms from 2000 years ago, my body remembered doing that.
Yeah,
And in
exactly.
fact, my sensei even said to me, have you done this before? And I said, no. And he goes, I've never seen somebody learn it so quickly.
Nice.
And then I'm always, when I get upset by life or drama or whatever, I'll watch a war movie or read a war book, because it puts everything into perspective instantly. Any problem that I have, I mean, it's not the same as being in war. And then I just have always had a softness in my heart for warriors, because what you do is so hard and takes so much discipline. And it's so about, not about yourselves,
Right.
to lay your life down to protect others. It's incredible.
Wow. But no doubt you've had some warrior past lives. There's no doubt, because people don't have those insights. You don't read it. I mean, even if you read that, or even if you listen to this, that's great. But once you felt it, you can tell when somebody has felt something versus just intellectually understand something, when you feel it in your heart. Kind of like when you talked about samadhi, someone who hasn't had that experience really can't understand it. We can talk about it, but
Right.
if you've had it, and you were right, in flying, you get in that state sometimes. It's not all the time, right? And it's a very special dynamic focus, is the way I like to talk about it, because you're not sitting there cross-legged, you're flying a jet, but you're in this state of focus and bliss that, time actually expands. It doesn't slow down, it really expands. It's another way to look at it. But pretty cool. So have you had any insights into what warrior lives you may have had besides the karate, which is super cool?
I got to take a katana class. The katana is the Japanese sword. I was the only woman in the class. I was with all military men, actually.
Wow.
And the first time I held the katana and took it out of the scabbard, I had a full flashback to jumping through fire in war as a samurai, as a female samurai, with a partner by my side, actually. Yeah.
Whoa.
And it was so visceral. And then I have one that might have been World War I that's pretty strong too. Like just in the trenches with the outfit, and going into samadhi, actually, like in the middle of all of it, just this like intense feeling of there's so much more to life than this.
Isn't it interesting when you're on the edge of life and death? And it doesn't have to be in war, by the way, it could be in other things. But when you feel that, it's really, you come alive, right? I mean, like you just said, there's a certain life force that when life and death are real and they're there and you feel it, and hopefully you don't want to feel it too much, too many times. But when it's there, and you survive, and that's not always guaranteed. I mean, you really don't know. There's a different attitude, a different perspective that you have on life. I know with me, one of the times I almost crashed on the back of my aircraft carrier where I really thought I was going to die. I mean, and it's kind of cool. If you're going to die, go out in a big fireball, and all of a sudden, this energy left my body, and I was actually above myself looking down at this whole situation. And I had total peace, total calmness, because I knew that I wasn't going to feel anything at that moment. My energy, the real, if you want to call it a soul, whatever you want to call it, had left my body. So, whatever happened was gone. I mean, it wasn't there. And then when I landed, and I really didn't expect to not blow up, I turned out I missed the ramp by about 12 or 18 inches. And the tail hook actually caught the wire. This energy comes dramatically back into my body violently, and I'm scared shitless. I am puking, dry heaving, my legs are shaking. I'm just like, what the hell was that? But it was such a calm place when I had left my body, and that's kind of cool, so have you had, I don't know why I even told that story, I really don't know, but does that story relate to any of your experiences?
It does. In fact, in Still on Fire. So
Oh,
So The Burn Zone is this cult survival memoir, and it's basically about triumph after tragedy. And when life comes along and
beautiful.
smashes the crap out of you, how you pull yourself out, but also how someone gets brainwashed and all of that. Still on Fire is about magic, miracles, travel, and romance. And
Oh, nice. Wait, say that again. Magic, miracles, travel, and romance.
yes,
Well,
and
we
the
all
time,
want that. That sounds
right,
pretty cool. I think it
especially
could
after
be
the
a
last 2.5
bestseller just from that title right there.
well, and especially after the last 2.5 years, it's like, don't we want to read about magic, miracles, travel, and romance? And so there are a couple stories of near-death experiences for me.
Really? Can you
Mhm.
share one with them? Give me one.
So one, I was talked into paddling out at Waimea Bay
Mm,
tandem with a pro surfer on a humongous day when the surf
really?
was like, I think it was like 20 feet Hawaiian, so like 40-foot faces.
Yeah.
And the helicopters were flying around with the photographers, and the lifeguards were going in and out on jet skis. And he was like, we'll just paddle out into the channel and watch. And I said yes, because he was hot. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And then I got really scared because I shouldn't have been out there. And I asked to go in, and we were on a 13-foot rhino chaser, like board for surfing big surf.
Okay.
And he dropped me
It's
off on
only 13 foot?
this one was 13 foot. Yeah.
Aren't they normally longer? Or is that normal?
Well, like the board I ride usually is 5 feet, 5 feet, 10
Right.
inches.
Yeah. For, in
Yeah.
close, right?
So 13 is pretty big
It's big.
for
Okay,
a
got it.
short board.
I'm used to stand-up paddle boards now. And
Okay.
I was just thinking on those big waves, they look larger. And plus your feet are in secured, right? To the board or not?
No, not like surfing Waimea like that. No. It's
No,
like
so
a
you're
regular
standing like
surfboard.
a normal surfboard.
Yeah, but big enough to handle
Yeah.
that size surf.
Okay, keep going. Tell me what's it like.
Okay, so he drops me off on the beach, but the shore pound was like double overhead. It was massive, smashing ferociously on the beach. And he's trying to navigate this 13-foot board. So he paddled in, dropped me off, paddled out behind the shore pound to wait for the timing.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get in. And then I just got sucked off the beach and into the shore pound, behind the shore pound. So,
Whoa.
and sucked down really quickly towards what they call the death zone, which
Yeah.
is the jagged lava rocks and cliffs on that side of the bay. And he didn't notice it because he was trying to get this 13-foot board in
Well,
without
plus
being
you're
slammed.
underwater most of the time, right? I mean, what aren't you?
Underwater?
Yeah.
Or he was on top of the water. I was
Right.
being sucked. I was treading water.
You're treading water, but you feel yourself getting sucked down.
I'm getting sucked towards the death zone. And
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, got it now.
And trying to swim in, but the shore pound was so scary. I couldn't.
Right.
Every time I try to swim towards the shore pound, I was like, because it would jack up probably like 15 feet over the beach and
Jeez.
slam on the sand.
Yeah. Sure.
And so I started getting scared. I started getting tired, and I was like, I'm going to drown unless the lifeguard comes.
Really?
And then I started to go under. I had been sick. I'd been diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. And that's a whole nother, I had to get off pharmaceuticals and get my diet together. And that's a whole nother journey for health. I'm super healthy now. And anyway, so I was weak anyway. And as I started going under and my world started turning black, a Hawaiian man showed up. He had fins on. He had this beautiful, serene face. And he said, I'm going to hold you above the water until the lifeguard comes. And he put his hands on my hips and he held me up. Wow. And then immediately the lifeguard was in my face and he was screaming, and he had a flotation device, and he grabbed me and he said, we're going to take the shore pound in. And we did. And we made it to the beach and we ran. He's like, run. And we're running up the beach to get away from the water. And we both collapse. And then I'm sobbing. And then the guy who I had been on the surfboard with had to run all the way down the beach in this really deep, soft sand. And he showed up and he's crying and was terrified. And I go, where's the man? Because I look out and he was gone.
Wow.
And they both said, what man? And it makes me cry. I say, the Hawaiian man who was holding me afloat. And they said, Renee, you were all alone.
Wow.
So that's one of the stories in the book.
Wow, that's so cool. Okay, I think you just sold a bunch of books because I'm gonna. I want to read the whole thing. Wow, so powerful. So do you classify that as a miracle? What is your interpretation?
My interpretation is that we don't exit this life until it's truly time for
Yeah.
us to, until we have accomplished what we came here to accomplish, or we need a break and we want to go home. And I just think when it's not our time, we don't go. It wasn't my time.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. The I was just thinking about something you said earlier that was very deep in the idea of angels. Now, I read a little bit about angels. You said miracles, right? Tell me
Yeah.
about angels. When you mentioned the word angels, I haven't read your book yet. Maybe they're in there. What is that all about?
I believe we have a whole team of non-physical beings that are
Yep.
here to support us and watch over us, and that we need to remember they're there and call and ask for help. And so when I'm going through a really hard time, especially when my mind is in a really dark place, I'll say, please help shed some light inside my mind. It's really dark right now, just a little bit of light, please. Or when I write, I pray to all the angels and guides of myself and my readers to channel wisdom and peace and soul soothing truth through me, humor. I think we have so much help and we just don't realize it, and we're not alone.
Wow. So, how many angels do you have?
Oh my gosh, when you said that, I feel like I have a whole army full. I think we
Yep.
all do, but I
Yes.
mean, I call on them all the time now, and so I see
Nice.
this just fierce army full of angels.
That's so cool. Have you ever been to a Tony Robbins event?
I haven't, no.
Yeah. So I went to one a few years ago and with a buddy of mine, and I guess Tony, I don't know Tony Robbins, by the way, but I know of him, but I guess he has somebody who, I don't know what you would call this person, but there's not well, bottom line, it's like you go into a room, you lay on a table, and then he doesn't touch you, but he's got this, kind of wand, like this magic wand, and it can move the energy in your body, right? And so I'm watching because other people go through it, and there's this one lady there's first. It's like she's doing like back bends that you've never seen before, right? And she's like almost levitating. I mean, it was weird, right? But I wasn't sure if it was like staged or not. You really don't know, right? And I'm sitting there watching it, going, "Well, that's really interesting." And then a couple other people did some things, and so I'm like, "Hey, man, I'm all in," and he goes onto my body, nothing. Okay. I mean, like he's saying, you can tilt your head back or your back. And man, he says, don't try, just let it happen. Well, nothing's happening. Right. And, so as we go walking out, and I really wanted the guy to succeed. I wasn't trying to be weird or anything. I just asked the guy, I said, hey, what did you see? How come, did you see anything? Because it was more epigenetic kind of stuff. It was that kind of stuff. And he goes, oh, he says, well, you got angels around you, and they just didn't want to participate in this. And I was like, really? He said, I said, well, how many? He goes, oh, you got legions of angels. I was like, sweet, that's good to know. I got legion of angels around me. And I believe it too. I actually do believe it. It's really cool.
I believe it. And when you were saying that, I got goosebumps. And I always think goosebumps are
Yeah.
it's when we're hearing or seeing or reading truth. Our body does that. So
Yeah, right? You just know,
yeah.
yeah, the intuition. So I like what you talked about too, about, prayers and asking for help. I think that's such a big aha. I want to double stamp that for everybody who's listening is, it's important to ask, right? And you have lots of help out there, whether it's supernatural angels or other people, right? But asking for help is sometimes one of the hardest things, especially when I think you're down, right? I mean,
Yeah.
tell me more about that from your perspective.
Well, it's another thing I touch on in Still on Fire is how there are 8 billion of us and each one of us is unique, which is amazing when you think about it.
That is.
And then how there's a tendency for us to feel so alone, even though we're surrounded by people. And that's where so much of the depression comes from. And I think when we can start to realize, well, and there's this yearning for, oh, someone who understands me or truly gets me, or a tribe of people who understand me or get me, or a partner, the whole soulmate thing, all of that. And this deep sadness, like, oh, I can be out in social situations, but I go home and nobody gets me, or I go out in social situations and I feel like a weirdo. And I guess I finally realized, well, we're the only version of us there is. So nobody's ever going to truly or completely and totally understand us. And so then when we realize they're not going to, they don't need to, it's more us understanding ourselves. I think then we don't feel so alone, then we realize like we just get to go out in the world and play with it and then go home when we need to be alone. But we're never alone. And with these angels and these non-physical beings and, this human community that's so diverse, I know I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole here, but I guess I'm just getting back to like, we don't need to feel so alone when we realize we're totally unique. Nobody's going to ever completely see it our way. And so it's more about us understanding ourselves and then going out in the world and just trying to listen to others and go, oh, that's an interesting viewpoint. I mean, it doesn't really work for me, but it seems to work for you.
Well, I think at its very essence, what I hear you saying is something that took me a long time to even grasp the idea. And that is the world's coming from us, not at us. Right.
Right.
And yeah, there you go. And if you can really understand that, what you just said makes total sense. But if I think the world's coming at me, then I'm looking for all these people to see me. I'm looking for answers outside. And what I heard you just say is they're really within.
Yeah, they're within. And they're also, I think the world might never see us the way we want to be seen. And that's okay. It's like, it's up to us to know who we are and to know what we offer and to know what we contribute. And then it's so kind to kind of sit back and let the people who need attention so badly be the ones that get the attention. Or, when I was so broken, I was so afraid of the world and I couldn't even go to the post office. I couldn't even go to the grocery store. And then suddenly I was like, well, what if I just go and I just make eye contact with the person there and I smile and I see this other human, and then they would sparkle. Like when I gave them that kind of attention, they would start to light up and become this sparkly angel. And so I started realizing I don't even need to talk if I'm afraid. All I have to do is look and listen and see and hear, and it changes everything going out into the world that way. And that's the glad to be here thing. And that's also being present in the moment, right?
Yes. Yes.
Seeing what you miss when you're constantly obsessed with your to-do list.
Wow. So tell me, by the way, dead on, tell me more about your personal journey of how did you get out of this extreme depression or whatever else, maybe not the right word, but whatever you were in, how did you get yourself out of it?
I started smiling because I thought you were going to ask me how I got out of the cult, and I actually got thrown out of the cult, but I'm not.
Well, see, there you go.
I'm not going to tell you how, because that gives away a lot of the first book. But there is a way to get thrown out of a cult. I somehow stumbled upon that. It's a spoiler alert, though.
Okay.
If I tell you.
No. Okay. We'll do it. We'll do it after I read the book. But go for it. Yeah.
Okay. But with the depression, there's a chapter in the first book called Oatmeal, and my only task for the day was to make it through a bowl of oatmeal. That's how down I was. I couldn't even feed myself. Wow. I wanted to kill myself, but I didn't have the energy to do it. I mean, I was taken to rock bottom. And then one day I just was like, and my self-talk used to be, you idiot, you dummy, or whatever.
Yep.
One morning I just said, honey, my self-talk switched to honey, sweetie, sweet girl. I said, honey, if you want to leave, you can leave. You totally can leave. You're here by choice. If you left, what would you miss? And I realized I would miss a warm cup of coffee in my favorite mug. I would miss watching the colors change in the sky when the sun was rising.
Do you have a new mug? Did we send you a mug?
No.
Oh,
I got a
sugar.
shirt.
You know what? I think we're out of mugs. We're gonna send you one of these afterwards.
Okay.
But I didn't mean to throw you off because you were going deep. Warm cup of coffee. Yeah, we're talking really meaningful things. Really. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Keep
Well,
going.
anyway, I just would miss all those little things. And so I was like, if you're
Yeah.
going to leave, you can leave, but let's tomorrow make that day all about all those little things. And I made my day for the first time in my life about all the little things I loved. And I had a great day. And I
Wow.
made the next day about all the little things. And I realized I'd been so worried about trying to prove myself, trying to get the MBA, trying to make the $10 million, trying to get the black belt, trying to become enlightened, that I was missing the most important parts of life, which are just finding joy in the little things.
Wow.
And so I started little thing by little thing by little thing, building joy back in my life. And I got rid of all the nonsense that didn't matter. And that's how I walked my way out of it. And it took 5 years. I thought I was going to
Did it
do it
take
in a
5
year.
years? Yeah. Yeah.
It took a long time.
Where are you in your journey in life when that happened? How long ago was that?
That was 2013 was when it all, end of 2012 is when it all crumbled.
Okay.
And my book came out in 2018. And that's when I felt ready to kind of be out in the world again.
Okay. Wow. Great. Powerful. The, as you thinking about little things, one of the things I like to do, I don't even think I put it in the book Fearless Success, but I'm speaking a lot about it now, is this thing called the Glad to Be Here Wake Up, just waking up and remembering the little things. Is that in the book?
It is in the book because you talked about how you start the day with your left foot on the floor.
Yeah. There you go. A trigger, a positive trigger.
It's great.
Do you have any? What's your morning routine? Do you have any?
The second I open my eyes, my bedroom's surrounded by trees, which is so beautiful.
That's nice.
And I look at my trees. I tell the trees how much I love them.
Nice.
And I say out loud, thank you, God. Or sometimes I'll say goddess, source, whatever.
Sure.
But I just say thank you. And then I just look at my trees and I go, you're so beautiful. I love you. Yeah.
And they're saying it back to you.
Oh,
Isn't
they
that
are.
what you feel? Yeah.
Yeah. You can see some of them behind me now. They're so beautiful.
I am. It's gorgeous. You're in, I think we said Snowmass, right? In Aspen area.
Snowmass.
Now, and why is that? You said as a little girl you were there?
I was here as a little kid. And when life smashed the crap out of me, I was in New York City.
Yeah.
And I just knew
New York City has a tendency to do that to a lot of people.
Did it? Yes.
But go ahead. I know.
And where Snowmass's population like 2,000. And I just knew I needed to be someplace quiet, safe, peaceful, where I could just heal. And I never expected to be here this long. I'm an ocean girl. But I'm surfing mountains now. I realize there's water all around me and I love snowboarding. So
I think there's a real connection between the ocean and the mountains and the sky. And I always thought I was a ocean, person, not like a surfer like you're talking about, but I grew up in high school in California. It was like a beautiful place to grow up in high school. And the Navy, flying jets off carriers, you think you're going to get assigned to beautiful places like Hawaii or San Diego. And I ended up flying A7s and F-18s, and they put us in the boonies, like places called Fresno. And I'm like, Fresno, what's the Navy doing in Lemoore? I mean, come on, you gotta be kidding me. But anyhow, I live now in the mountains. So I'm in Sun Valley, and I know exactly what you mean to be in a beautiful community that's small. Nature. I just got back from a hike with our doggies out back in the back, and just walk out the back, and there's 100,000 acres of wilderness land. It's just so cool. And I was told this. Another thing I learned from people on podcasts, that somebody told me that they've actually done studies that nature absorbs negative energy. The ocean, the trees. Have you ever heard that? I mean, I think viscerally, I feel that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I haven't heard that, but I absolutely feel it. And anytime I'm in a funky state of mind, all I have to do is go hike or surf or snowboard, and I'm so much better. And I realize that this community here, people are drawn here for that reason,
right? That
we all tend to reset in nature, and we all have tremendous gratitude for the beauty of it.
Yeah, I love the gratitude again on the little things. So what was the next step? So you started with little things every day. How about helping people? Where did that come into? When did you get your mind off yourself and your own issues and start helping others?
I think it was as soon as when I was so scared to leave my house and go to the store, and I
Right.
realized if I made going to the store about the person in front of me, whether it was the cash register or the person welcoming me in or the post office, then the attention was off of me. And when I did that and I saw that person light up, I started making almost everything I do about how do I bring light into the world? And in fact, that was the whole reason I wanted to become an enlightened saint anyway. And the whole reason I destroyed my life. And so then the next step, I realized to make it about others, I had to start self-nurturing. And I had to make sure that I was taking such good care of myself, loving myself so much, filling myself up so much that when I went out into the world, I was a full cup ready to pour into others instead of going out into the world looking for others to fill me or give to me. And when I made that shift, I was on my way, because then it was just so much joy to interact with all these people who had brought me so much fear, really.
I'm writing it down because I think that could be the title of our podcast, a full cup wanting to pour into others. That's kind of a cool thought. Yes, how powerful is that, right? Now, for somebody who maybe is battling with depression and they're listening to this, it sounds easy, but I'm sure it wasn't, right? Or was it? Were you able just to switch? Tell me more about that, because like I'm bought in. I'm like, of course, that's what you want to do, but I'm not sure that's easy to do. I could be wrong though.
No, it wasn't easy, and it wasn't easy. And in fact, one of the comments on the burn zone was, for anyone who's ever struggled with depression, Renee explains it so well, not only what it was like to be in it, but how she got herself out of it. I really did write a roadmap for coming out of depression with the first book. But for me, no, it was one step forward, two steps back, one step sideways, two steps. I mean, it was all over the place. And I had gotten so depressed that I couldn't even muster the energy to brush my teeth. My body, I'd been a dancer and a surfer my whole life, and my body turned to mush and it got fat and there was no muscle tone. And it was step by step, but it was faith. It was faith that when I had this moment where I was like, everything I went through was to become this enlightened saint. So in this totally shattered state, I have to have faith that there's a divine plan and that this undoing, I'm being undone for a reason. And so then I finally surrendered into being completely undone. Instead of trying to get out of it, I let myself sit in it, which is a very important step. And then to slowly build the authentic pieces back, because I think what depresses us so much is living a life that's not authentic because we're trying to be who the world has always told us we need to be. And so when you go to, I just want to kill myself, and then you go to, well, what would make me want to stay? And you build a life based on what would make me want to stay. Life's really good. It's so fun.
I like the way your eyes just lit up. Anybody
who's incredible.
If they're not watching on YouTube, they need to scroll to this moment because your eyes just lit up. Give me some of that. Why is life so good now? What is it?
Because I spent life in a cage trying to be who the world told me I had to be. And then when I finally got to be me, it's like, I'll be out at dinner. If they're playing good music, I want to get up on the bar and dance. I'm going to get up on the bar and dance. They tell me it's inappropriate, I'll get down, and it's like, if everybody's going to go to the theater or something and I don't want to go because I really want to be home in a bathtub alone, I'll honor that now.
Yeah.
And I have great friends too, because I always say, can I be a definite maybe? Because of everything I've been through and because of how sensitive I am, I can't know for sure that Friday night I'll want to go to dinner. I might be really introverted. And so I've learned to just navigate life the way I need to truly honor myself. And it's so fun. It's so fun.
I like this definite maybe.
I love the definite maybe, and they understand because then I
That's
don't have to make plans and cancel because I'm not feeling like it.
right.
So
No, that's so cool. What do you think gave you the strength, or is it more self-realization to talk like you're talking now versus what you were before?
I think it's being totally broken. And I think
Mm,
it's trying so hard, especially women, we're like, we're supposed to be everything. And then we're supposed to be beautiful on top of it. And then we're supposed to look like we're 25 and we're supposed to be 100 pounds. All this pressure, all this brainwashing from the
yeah.
media. And it just, and men have the opposite version, right? Men are supposed to make a ton of money and they're supposed to have their muscles. And, it's just like, it's just not fair to any of us. And I think trying to do that until it broke me made me
Mm,
finally give myself permission to be outcast if I need to be outcast, be demonized if I need to be demonized, have
mhm.
people not like me, not love me. It's fine. But I have to love myself and like myself. And I think that just being exhausted by trying to do it the other way is what made me finally start doing it this way. And then it's so fun and it's so easy because you just doing what you love, what you're good at, what brings you
Right.
joy. And then I realized, I'm happy, so I'm kind, and
Right.
kindness is what this world needs. And happy people are kind people.
Well, and I think it's a circle, and kind people are happy, right? So
Right.
there's no starting point unless if everybody's seeking happiness, and all of us are in one way, shape, or another. It starts with giving. It starts with kindness, and then you start to pick up the happiness. At least in my opinion. But I think it's circular, right?
It definitely is. It is. I mean, we're beings of love. We are. We love to love and we love to be loved. I mean, that's the essence of humans.
Oh, that's cool too.
And so I
Love to
just,
love and love to be loved. Is that in your book? You're throwing
yeah,
out
it
some really
is.
good
It
stuff.
is
Yeah.
because that's when we feel our best, is when we're
Yeah.
loving and giving and kind and generous and understanding and patient. We love that version of ourselves.
You do. It's interesting. We've got two Rhodesian Ridgebacks. Anyhow, they just came up to say hi to me, and
Oh,
they're both rescue dogs. Let's see if I can get back.
oh, I'd
Hey
love to
guys,
meet
can you
him.
see? Okay. Oh, this is.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
wow.
That's Mr. Nash. He's 108 pounds.
Hi,
Yeah,
Mr.
and here's Ruby
Nash.
Roo. Come on, want to get up? She said, "No, Dad. Let's go for a walk. Let's go for a walk." Anyhow, they just came up to say hi. And isn't it so interesting how animals? Oh, that's a good yawn. How animals can bring that love out, that unconditional love, like they just gave me. Isn't it amazing? I mean, why can't people do that?
They showed up at the perfect time too, because they're pure, animals are pure love. I mean,
Mhm.
right? No matter how badly you treat them, no matter how long you leave them alone, they're pure love. They just love to give love and receive love.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
it's a good analogy. Wow. Okay, so a couple things we could talk forever, but I'm really, really enjoying this conversation. But I want to go back to a couple of things that I thought were pretty dang interesting. So this idea of you fall into a cult. Oh, they're playing now. Which what just hit my mind is it sounds like, because the idea, the way you described it, is not a bad idea. We all want to become enlightened. We all want to, make money if that's what you want to do. You want to help others, right? And it sounds like you still want to do that, but there's something that was off
oh yeah.
coming from her, right? Or whoever, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever figure that out? What was right, or not right, but what was attractive and what was missing? What was off?
Well, what was off is there was actually a female and a male teacher. She was the main teacher. And it's like any toxic relationship, I think, where it starts off with love bombing and romance and feeling, everything's great and your life's improving in all these wonderful ways. And then they slowly start to occupy more and more of your time. And then they slowly start to suggest that certain people aren't good for you, or certain activities. So they slowly remove your support
Mm,
structure and the things that empower you. Um, and then in the case of the cult, the group think starts to kick in. I mean, she overloaded our schedule with so many tasks and so many things to do that there's no room for friends or family or even surfing or dancing for me. I was becoming a computer programmer. I ended up running her company, trying to get my black belt, trying to meditate. And so then eventually your whole life becomes the group, or in a toxic relationship, the other person, the partner, the job, whatever. And then they introduce self-doubt. And the self-doubt is what's so crippling, not listening to your own intuition and self-doubt. And I will never understand why she's doing what she's doing. I don't, I think it's borderline sociopathy. It's narcissism. I don't know. They really think they are the guru. They are an incarnation of God. I don't know. I'll never understand. It was my crucible for awakening, and it worked.
Well,
it's a hell of a story.
I would say, one of the beauties of that story, and everyone's going to have their own experience. It may be different for another person. It was what you needed to learn. It's a hard thing to say needed, right? But look at what you've learned, right? Yeah. And I think if everybody, and I'm just thinking about, even people that had, let's say a tough childhood, there's a lot of blame and stuff that can be going on. And at some point, and again, it's easier said than done, because I actually had a great childhood. I had a great loving mom and dad. I didn't experience some of the stuff that I hear people talk about. And I realize how damaging it can be, right? But it seems like once you actually flip the script to where it's actually, you've learned from it and you're a better person because of it. Is that what's needed to forgive? I mean, I guess my question is, how do you forgive when it really hurts? I had to
take full responsibility. So
that what it is?
I have, and I think there's the chapter I think is called Warrior in the Burn Zone, when I woke up one morning and I was done being a victim and I was ready to be a warrior. And I realized I had to take full responsibility for getting myself into that group and for staying, for getting myself into that business in New York, for all of it. I even had to take full responsibility on a soul level for my childhood, and for signing up to lose so much of my family, signing up to be with an abusive mother. It was so empowering to go, my soul chose this for a very particular reason, so that I can help others. How can I help anyone if I haven't lived through it? And so with that, and I made a playlist called Back in Black, and it started with AC/DC's Back in Black. It had Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train about losing his mind, it had Eminem, it had Ludacris, and I blasted it. And then I decided I was going to get my body back in shape. I started going to body pump classes, and I was getting my mind back in shape, and I dropped out of school. I was going back to school, and I was just like, I'm coming back like a phoenix from the ashes, and I'm taking full responsibility for every single thing that happened to me.
Wow. And I can feel it. See, that's what really cool. And I think people on this can feel it too, is like you said, if you hadn't really gone through all that stuff you've gone through, it wouldn't be as visceral. I mean, you could say the same thing, right? And it wouldn't be the same, but I feel it in you. You can feel it, that you're back. I love the phoenix coming out of the ashes. That's cool. Well, then, as we wrap here, I want to circle back to the very first thing that's been on my mind since the very first conversation you and I had. So why are we here?
You know what? We're here to live lives of joy. That's why we're here, to love ourselves and to love each other, to make spectacular mistakes, to not have any idea what the hell we're doing, to try and fail and do this and don't like it and try this and love it, and to just be ourselves. It's like, it's a messy, crazy, weird, wild ride. And I just think, we just got to live, capital LIVE.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. I can tell. I think you're doing that now, right?
I am, and I'm, like I said, when you were asking about having it figured out, every time I think I have it figured out, life comes along and is like, nope, sweetie, you have no idea. But I'm
glad you're talking to yourself as sweetie. That's cool. I like that.
I'm so nice to myself now. And, but I think it's love, it's just love ourselves, love each other. And my life is so fun now because I do that.
Wow. So I always end on two questions, and thank you for this beautiful share. First off, I just want to make sure we go in the show notes, but the book's on Amazon and the new title is Fire. What's it called again?
Still on Fire.
Still on Fire.
Yep.
Okay. And then you got another book, The Burn Zone. So I'm going to get both of those. Sugar, we got to order those. You need one too. Okay. Then, and then the other thing though, that what are some life lessons that you've learned? You have so many. I mean, here's what's really cool. I would think hanging out with you would be great for anybody because there's so many stories that probably come out around life. But if you were going to pass a certain lesson on, maybe it's not even the lesson, it's more what you learned from it, a mantra, a saying, maybe a quote. What are things that you live your life by now?
Oh my gosh, that's a huge question. I think the number one thing is self-love. We've got to learn to love ourselves. We are bombarded by messaging that tells us we're not okay, so that we'll buy their products, or so that we'll hate ourselves and then hate each other. And so we've got to learn to love ourselves, to look in the mirror and say, you're beautiful, to forgive ourselves for mistakes we've made, to share our stories, especially about the skeletons in our closet. Because when we love ourselves, and we have so much love and patience for each other. And then I think to realize we're not all supposed to think the same and act the same and believe the same things. Life would be so boring here if we did. And so when people don't think the same things or believe the same things, like, let's save our energy trying to convince them. And let's just be a living example of what we want to teach. And shine that wisdom, shine that strength, shine that knowledge, shine that compassion. And then they'll actually come up to us and say, how do I do what you're doing? How do I live a life of joy? Then they're open and ready to listen and hear. But otherwise, let's leave each other alone, I think. And if people piss us off, don't hang out with them. If news pisses us off, turn it off. Don't listen to it. But it's like, we're here for such a short time. We're in these bodies for such a short time. We're supposed to be happy and joyful. So figure out what makes you happy and joyful and go do it, and leave everyone else alone.
Beautiful wisdom there. What life wisdom. Enjoy life and figure out what makes you happy and go do it. I love that. That's pursuing your passion. That's passion and purpose all coming together. I will share, I've been tempted not to do this, but I'm going to do it anyhow. So I actually pray to angels every morning, and I actually have a routine I do that involves, it's kind of yoga mixed in with qigong, mixed in with some Navy SEAL stuff I've learned. And bottom line is, it's a motion, but it's to the 5 areas, and I have 5 angels that that hang out with me. Do you have names for your angels?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I got names. Okay.
I love that.
But yeah. And it's cool. I can call them up anytime. Right. And you can see them. You can feel them. I've never seen them. Who cares? Doesn't matter. I don't need to see. When you have faith, you don't need to see, right? They're just there. Right. And, but the first one is what I call an angel of appearances. And I always face the east. This first thing I do in the morning after I do my left foot forward, life is gorgeous, do my prayers, my glad to be here, wake up. But then I go outside, and I love it in the snow. And I go out there usually without clothes on, just because I want to be cold. I want the shock of the things. And the first angel is the angel of appearances. And I say, may I appear as others need me today. And then the second angel is the angel of giving. And may I give in ways that people need. May I give of my time, my energy, may I give love, right? And then the third one is an angel of emanation. And that is, may I emanate as in my thoughts, my words, and my actions in a way that's helpful for others. The fourth one is the angel of accomplishments, which is just, may I accomplish something today in my personal, my spiritual, my professional life. And then the last angel is the angel of fearlessness. And that's the book back there, right? And all I say is, I am unshakable, I am unstoppable, I am fearless. That's my morning routine. And I thought I'd share that with the audience and you too. Do you have one similar, or what?
Well, I just want to say that's so beautiful. And you're clearly a living example of that. And you shine with that light. Your book shines with that light. And And I think that everybody has access to that. We all have access to that. We just
Exactly.
have to believe in it, really. Um, Mine is, I think it's just gratitude. I mean, I have dropped to my knees so many times on the hard kitchen floor when
Yes.
life comes along. Even silly things like I had this shopping list. I went to the store, I got home, I forgot post-it notes. I was so frustrated. Then I opened my mail and a real estate agent had sent post-it notes with her face on it. And those weren't the ones I wanted, but the fact that I needed post-it notes and the universe found a way to deliver them to me, it's unbelievable. And I think the universe is constantly looking for ways to surprise and delight us and wants to give us everything. We
Yes.
just don't believe it's possible. So I guess my practice is I'm just always asking basically to be a channel of peace and wisdom and truth and light. And that, like, when people come work at my house, I'll say, please let them be filled up with light and peace while they're here and when they leave.
Nice.
Or when I get a massage, I always pray.
Yeah, for the
Massage
person
there.
giving the massage.
Yes, feel better and energized when I leave. And
That's my little trick too. I'm glad you said that. I just do it in my own mind because I know they're helping me, but I want them to feel good. And it's funny
yeah.
when you do that, you watch, right? You get a better massage.
And they're always happy to see you on the schedule. It's
Amazing.
just,
That's
yeah,
so
so
cool.
it's
What
similar.
let's wrap with a glad to be here share out. I always like to share a moment of gratitude. So I'll start, and then you get to close the entire podcast. So number one, thank you. It is such a beautiful conversation. I knew this would be good, but I had no idea it would be this deep, right? So Renee, and now we know fire, thank you for just being open and honest and sharing what you did, but thank you for who you are. That warrior. There's no doubt you're a warrior in past lives. And thank you for being the warrior in this current life. It just may look a little different, right? But it's still a warrior. And I'm so grateful that we had this time together. I hope this has helped a lot of people. You've helped me, and I'm going to pass that on. I'm going to try to keep passing on the goodness. So thank you for being here, and glad to be here. Over to you.
Well, thank you for that. That's so beautiful. And it's interesting that I didn't tell you this until just now, but my glad to be here moment is I was doing my book tour in Washington and Florida, and I was flying home to Denver and I was watching Top Gun Maverick.
Oh,
And then I had the thought, it'd be so cool to have a call sign. I wonder what my call sign would be. And then I was like, it would be so cool to meet one of those pilots because I have so much admiration for what, just the discipline that it takes and all the skills it takes. And so I just had that thought, I let it go. And then I went to check my mail and I got the care package addressed to Fire from you and from Sugar and from your team. And it just was amazing. So I'm so glad to be here too. Just getting to know you and your team and your listeners. It's wonderful.
well, thank you, Fire. And you're a bright light. Fires, it can be a bright light, and you're a bright light to the world. So thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.